play. And another foul on board. His third for setting a screen.
Because of physical play, although Jordan Taylor just got caught with a moving screen.
Pick and roll. And a foul. Offensive foul coming up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition, twice in 1 week, the Moving Screen Podcast. Dylan, what's up, man?
Not much. Ready for this English Premier League season. Today we're gonna dive into our top six.
It is. If we're doing anything that's non-basketball, we're doing golf.
Fair enough. Sorry, people. Today we are going to talk a little Michigan State recruiting, though.
That's right. For anyone who missed it yesterday, we did a solid hour or so on Michigan's recruiting pursuits, focusing mostly on the 2020 class, which is pretty big for Juwan Howard and the boys. But today we're coming at you with some Michigan State recruiting. We'll look at 2020. We're going to touch probably a little bit more so than we did with Michigan, at least, on the 2021 group, because they're a little bit more aggressive there for obvious reasons. So, again, this is kind of the format where we're splitting up the two podcasts, kind of being, in theory, we are still a Michigan State podcast, but the episodes will probably be a little bit more centered one by one. So, hope that makes sense. And if you don't like it, what did you say yesterday? It's our podcast. Everyone can piss off.
I said we can do what we want.
I think
you said they can piss off.
Fair. Maybe being a bit of an aggressor there, but that's fine. All right, let's get right into it. We'll start big picture when it comes to State. On paper, they have two spots open for the 2020 class. That is including a 2020 commitment from Jalen Terry from Beecher, Flint kid.
When you say including, you mean 2 plus Terry?
Yes. So
2 additional open spots.
Was that not clear?
I didn't find it particularly clear, but
well, then it probably wasn't clear. It's very much like my writing. All right, so Terry's already on board. He's kind of just a hiccup quick scoring point guard, Flint kid, certified bucket getter in Burkhart parlance.
Yeah, I've got a little Jalen Terry stat for us, though.
Okay.
So obviously Michigan State's going to have to replace Cassius Winston, who's probably the best ball screen guard in the country this year coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Terry finished third in the EYBL in points created out of ball screens this year, only behind 5-star guard Sharif Cooper and 2021 guard Kennedy Chandler, who is one of the probably top players in the 2021 class. So really elite ball screen guard. He can get buckets, he can pass, and he really plays in a style that I think is a natural kind of transition from what Winston does as a playmaking pick-and-roll guard, and probably a great fit there in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, they loved him for a long time. They've been on him for a long time. Let's look at 2021 roster, right? Because when I say there's 2 spots available, that is including Xavier Tillman, that is including Aaron Henry. I think it's certainly in the conversation whether those 2 guys are still around or if they are off to the NBA. But, going beyond Tillman and Henry, you're looking at a roster of Thomas Kithier, Foster Lawyer, Gabe Brown, Marcus Bingham, Rocket Watts, Malik Hall, Julius Marble, Joey Hauser, Jalen Terry. All right. So right now it looks like Michigan State's kind of focusing on probably a big-time scoring wing guard, maybe more so of a wing than a true guard. But you have Rocket Watts there, who's probably projects to being the starting 2 in that season. So we'll go through some names, same way we did with Michigan. You got anything else to go on before we get into these guys?
Yeah, so 2 spots. Do you think they looked at kind of 2 scoring wings or maybe a bigger forward too. It seems
I
like
imagine they'll
potentially.
always add a bigger forward. Like it's still going to be Michigan State. They're always going to add just another big tough son of a bitch down low, right?
So yeah, I was on the lookout for that.
Right. It's kind of
fit the mold.
just a factory up there. So yeah, for sure. Let's start with the guy who probably the top target in the class right now. They are high on him. He is high on them. Bryce Thompson, probably a name that I imagine at this time is already well familiar with most Michigan State fans who follow him. But he's a combo guard who I was told is a guy who kind of actually understands what it means to be a combo guard, right? You feel like most guys who are kind of in betweeners, everyone want they want to be a point guard. I'm a point guard, right?
Everyone under 6'6" wants to be a point guard.
Exactly. So Thompson, on the other hand, can play both, but embraces, I think, his flexibility.
And in a lot of ways, I think Michigan State really embraces guys who can score as a guard, not always as a playmaker, but just like a true scoring guard. I think that really fits Michigan State's system. And you look at guys they've had who they really kind of just set everything up so that they can be that scorer, and maybe there's another guy who plays on the ball who does more of the distribution, right? Like I think that an old school traditional combo scoring guard really fits just what Michigan State looks for when it builds its rosters.
Right. And scoring guard being the key word. I mean, he's a flat out scorer, 6'5", extremely talented kid, top 20 nationally. But the interesting thing with him, he's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and yeah, Oklahoma is obviously a major player here. The working theory that people are going with is that he's going to kind of follow that Trae Young path and go save the Sooners again, or make the Sooners relevant in basketball again. Obviously, sometimes guys leave home, and that's what Michigan State has to kind of be hoping and praying for here.
Yeah, so Oklahoma probably the biggest threat, because, I mean, that area of the country also I always think about Kansas. Oklahoma State's probably going to have an elite class that year, too, because Cade Cunningham likely to go there. So
yeah, Oklahoma State, Kansas have been kind of just all over this thing for a very long time.
But so that's the top guy on the board, you'd say, right now for Michigan State?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, the staff there thought that they were very close with Cam Fletcher, thought a commitment was coming, and then, lo and behold, in a very familiar story, he committed to Kentucky. So he's off the board. That was kind of that one stung for sure over there. But yeah, I would think that beyond that, Thompson is the top target. Obviously, Isaiah Jackson is a very unique story. He's a in-state kid who went off to Spire last year and played with Rocket Watts and LaMelo Ball for Jermaine Jackson at Spire. Is now back in state. Announced that he's heading to Waterford Mott next year. I think it's kind of a we'll see in terms of what his future looks like. Michigan State is obviously very much in the conversation if he plays college ball, but that's all kind of to be determined. But he's a major prospect. He's certainly a priority for them, and they'll get him, I'm sure, on campus multiple times this year. It'll be easier because they have him in state. It's a pretty quick drive now, so there's a connection there with Watts. They've been recruiting this dude forever, so yeah, certainly. I don't think that's news to anyone out there, right?
Yeah, and I think what we said yesterday about Isaiah Jackson's recruitment is it's a complicated one.
Right.
So a lot of moving pieces there, but Michigan State has obviously been a kind of a constant there. It also seems like his recruitment, just in terms of the process, has never really progressed, right? Like, it's not like he's taking visits everywhere. It's not like he's putting out a list. It's sort of just I don't know. I don't know what to really make of that, but it kind of says something about, probably it's not going to be something that resolves quickly, I wouldn't think.
And if he does go, for what it's worth, 6'9", really thin, superb athlete, fast, big jumper.
Potentially the best rim protector in the class, I would say.
Yeah, would be a really interesting fit for Michigan State. He's about 6'9", but pretty skilled. And it'd be interesting to find out, he's just kind of at this point collecting offers, one after another. Most recently was Alabama, I believe, right? With Nate Oates obviously having that Michigan connection down there. It will be really interesting. This is kind of an aside, but what kind of, if Nate Oates is able to pull kids from Michigan or Michigan kids who transfer elsewhere, what do you think about that?
I'm sure he's going to. It certainly seems like he's going to try. I don't know what that poll will look like, but he's already been tied with quite a few kids in the state, I would say, and quite a few kids on the radar for Michigan as well. So it'll be interesting how he recruits. I mean, probably too early to say right now, right? And depends on what kind of success he has down there.
Put it this way, I mean, it's been well documented how many the kind of vacuum of talent that's occurred at the prep level in Michigan, right? There are fewer kids to be had for the local schools, and Michigan State still has a roster that is typically at least, half maybe made up of in-state kids. It's obviously that if there's a kid that the state produces, they're going to be the leader in that recruitment if they choose to be. And Michigan's always kind of been there and maybe grab a guy here or there, but to have a guy like Nate Oates with his Michigan connections be at a high major right when he's at Buffalo, whatever, who really gives a shit? But you're at Alabama, maybe.
Is Alabama going to come in and beat Michigan State for a kid that Michigan State wants in the state of Michigan? I would say the more likely thing would be the next tier of guys that are maybe not Michigan State priorities, but are like a level below. Like, that's how you have to start making inroads in the state.
Sure.
But
he's a guy who's known for his recruiting, and he's a
point.
Michigan guy. So it's, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Alabama becomes a recruiting presence here. I would say of the out-of-state schools, it's Missouri and Alabama are probably the schools Xavier that have kind of the best chance of actually taking anyone from Michigan or Michigan State. I don't know. That's a totally different topic, but
yeah, I mean, we'll see. Wisconsin has done a decent job in the state, I would say. And I don't know it really depends on what Alabama under Nate Oates looks like, right?
True.
Like, that's kind of up in the air at this point.
True.
Just more of a big picture thing. I think it's quite interesting that this list we're going over for Michigan State targets, there's not a lot of overlap as far as Michigan and Michigan State targets.
Right. But there is some overlap.
There's one overlap, which we could get into next, which I found to be an interesting name on the board. You want to get into that?
Yes, yeah. So of the 2020 guys, Bryce Thompson has an offer, obviously. Isaiah Jackson has an offer, obviously. But also Jermaine Brakefield. Did I pronounce that right?
Sounds good.
Brakefield, yeah. And AJ Hoggard, both at Huntington Prep, teammates at Huntington Prep. Brakefield, you're making a confused face.
Did Hoggard transfer? I thought he's going to IMG.
Oh, maybe
or is that someone else on the list? Maybe not. No, he must be at Huntington Prep too.
Yeah, they're teammates there. Michigan State's recruiting both. Michigan's recruiting Brakefield. I don't know. Is Michigan in with Hoggard at all?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. So, Brakefield and Hoggard. At
this point, we don't know. I mean...
Hoggard being a point guard from Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is actually kind of out around Villanova.
Philly guy.
I know the Philly burbs, man. You never need, any locations of anything. I got you. Brakefield is kind of more of a 6'8", power forward, for lack of a better term. They're all on both. Neither has visited but both have scholarship offers. And I would imagine in the first or second weekend of home football action, these will be two names that you will see on campus for what will probably be pretty significant visits for this program's 2020 aspirations.
Okay, so where in the process is Bryce Thompson? Like, would he be a tier? Would they push for a visit or commitment from Thompson ahead of like a guy before they offer or push for Hoggard on a visit? You know what I mean?
Certainly think so, but I think you could also take both.
Yeah.
Like we said, they have two open spots. They can go one over. Michigan State doesn't typically do that, but you can, and you do have to plan for potentially more departures. Like I said, Henry, Tillman. If Foster Lawyer doesn't play at all this year, there could be some writing on the wall there. I think it's a big year for Foster to kind of prove that he's in the right spot. So there's kind of a lot of moving pieces, but when it comes to guys of this level, I don't know if you're telling anybody no.
Definitely. I'm just wondering about kind of where everyone is in the process and how that could play out. But so Brakefield and Hoggard, you think will be on campus this September, thereabouts?
I think so, yes. The problem is that they'll probably also be on campus together at Kentucky. Although I'm actually not sure if Kentucky's after Hoggard. Let's double check that.
Kentucky's after a tier kind of above as far as
so
combo guards at this point.
It's more so Brakefield, and we talked about him yesterday. Do you kind of want to give a recap of that? Your thoughts on him?
Sure, yeah. I like his game quite a bit. He's a guy who really fits as kind of a modern four-man where he can do multiple things with the ball. He has the length to defend bigger players, smaller players. Can do a little bit of playmaking. Shot is coming along and enough there probably to be excited about it. We don't really know. He's a lefty. He is really an intriguing prospect. Michigan and Michigan State, I think, both offered him in July most recently. So they probably both will be kind of a factor in his recruitment there. I'm not sure how high he is on Kentucky's board right now, just because they've been racking up commitments and they have a lot of maybe higher regarded targets on the board still, but definitely like his game a lot.
Yeah. Hoggard is kind of a 6'3" point guard, averaged I think about 16 or so a game this year in EYBL. His recruitment's really kind of gone to another level. He switched from Team Final, which is based out of Philly, to PSA Cardinals. I think it's kind of seen as a Michigan State, Louisville, I think Maryland is in there. So good competition, but not blue blood competition, Could be a really good fit, and I guess we'll see on him.
And Huntington Prep, Miles Bridges,
correct.
Key connection there for
both
Michigan State, I would say. Yeah, for both guys.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to touch on some. These are targets for State who don't yet have offers, but that could certainly change soon. We'll start local. Matthew Nicholson, a 7-footer out of Clarkston. Obviously, there are numerous Clarkston connections to Michigan State. Notably, the fact that Foster Lawyer currently plays there. Dane Fife is, I think, the honorary mayor of the actual town. And, I mean, the list goes on and on. Nicholson's kind of a guy who's been a, mid-high...
I would say mid-major plus.
Right, mid-major
use a little
plus
scout lingo.
guy. There you go. Level recruit who maybe a little growth spurt. Plus the fact that, Michigan State likes having Michigan kids. That's the thing. So,
picked up a Northwestern offer recently.
Okay.
Another mid-major plus offer.
Oh, whoa. Low key shade.
Mid-major plus, high major minus.
Low key shade.
But he's a kid who has played well throughout the summer, and has been trending in the right direction. Where it's probably just it's just evaluating whether to pull the trigger or not if you're Michigan State in this one, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Matt Murrell from IMG. He's a Florida kid. Has been a target of your Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Memphis, kind of that.
He's grouping. A Memphis kid, right?
He's from Memphis. I'm sorry. He's a Florida kid because he's playing at IMG, right? But a shooting guard, and I think he could. I think he's a potential guy that gets an offer, maybe here in the fall, as part of a visit, possibly.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked about Jaden Springer yesterday, who is a guy who's being recruited really heavily as a combo guard by Memphis and Tennessee, and this is a local kid who might get more attention if Springer goes elsewhere, or maybe not as prioritized by those schools if one of them grabs him, right? So, another kid who has had a big summer, and so you think he's a kid who will be potential kind of next on the board for an offer?
I think so. But he's a Memphis kid who's being recruited by Memphis. That's always a difficult situation.
But
he's also being really pursued by, I think he's a priority Jerry Stackhouse, one of those kind of first guys on his list at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and he's an Under Armour kid, not a Nike kid, which might make it harder for Memphis to be as big of a factor, I would say, considering Penny's a Nike guy, right?
Sure.
Got to keep track of these things.
You do. You're on
but
it, man.
But he fits that same mold as Bryce Thompson, AJ Hoggard, basically another guard playmaker to play next to Jalen Terry, right?
Right.
Like I would say those three guys all kind of fit in that bucket, which is kind of standing out as the focus in the class.
All right. Next guy on our list is Matty Sissoko. He's in high school in Utah, but from Mali, not Maui, as somebody mispronounced when going through this.
That somebody was you. You're trying to play it off like it wasn't you.
But this is that kind of prototypical Michigan State guy, right? He's 6'8", just a beast of a body, has offers all over the place, but of late had a interesting turn in his recruitment. You want to? Yeah, I know this fascinates Mr. Burkhardt over there, so feel free to tell the story.
I always like to say that there's no such thing as a bad official visit. You always see these stories about like how every prospect loved their official visit, because how can you really have a bad trip when it's all expenses paid, wine and dine you on a visit for 48 hours? BYU managed to pull off the bad official visit here. They have really prioritized Sissoko. They flew all the way to Mali, 27 hours each way for a 90-minute in-home visit with his family. Going all out, bringing out all the stops. Had him on an official visit this month. Crashed an ATV and broke his hand on the official visit. Out for a significant amount of time. His high school put out a statement.
This is the most amazing part of the story.
Specifically point out that he was injured in an activity planned and sponsored by the university when he was with other members of the BYU basketball team and coaching staff. I mean, that's how you fuck up an official visit right there. That's bad.
That stings.
That's rough.
That stings.
So maybe cross BYU off his list?
I don't know. I mean, they did fly to Mali. That's pretty impressive. Michigan State, I believe he has visited. I'm like 98% sure that he has been on campus.
His 24/7 profile says he was in May.
There you go. So definitely a target. he could be another guy that comes back for maybe get him back here for a football game. Does not have an offer though. So are they waiting or what?
Other places say he has an offer, so I'm not sure.
He was not.
I mean,
listed amongst the people that I was told have an offer.
So there's a lot of talk that Michigan State is in a good spot here if they do kind of push after him, is what it seems like. So he's a guy who definitely fits the mold, so to speak, of a Michigan State 5-man, and would be an interesting ad for them, I would say, for sure.
For sure. John Hughley, your neck of the woods, Cleveland kid, right?
Yeah, Northeast Ohio kid.
There you go. Give me the scoop.
He's another big kid, wide-bodied post player, maybe like 6'9". He was hurt, I think, for a lot of the spring and missed some time, but then came back in July and played pretty well. Sort of old school, back to the basket, big man.
He's probably got a little Nick
I don't
Ward,
think Michigan State was
Travion Williams type guy.
Yeah, a little bit like that. Like you look at him, you might think maybe he should play tight end, but he's just getting buckets. I don't think Michigan State was in his Final 12, but I feel like Final 12s only exist so that you can add new teams to your Final 5. So I don't know that means all that much.
Right. Again, doesn't have an offer, so if you're making a final list, maybe you don't list a school that doesn't offer, or maybe the recruitment's cool, but we'll see. That's just a name to keep an eye on. You want to hop over to 2021?
Yeah, so I guess you want to make some 2020 predictions. Ooh. Like, who do you think ends up in this group? Anyone that you think is the best bet, maybe?
I will say they get Hoggard and a player to be named later.
It's like a baseball trade over here.
I don't know. I mean, Bryce Thompson would be a big prediction. They're in with the big boys on that one. It's tough. I feel most confident saying Hoggard.
All right, but you'd say Bryce Thompson's the top of the wish list right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough. And I do think it's for two recruiting boards, both kind of heavy on out-of-state prospects. I find it really interesting that there's not more overlap between who Michigan and Michigan State are going after. Do you think that's unique, or do you think it's just normal operating procedure?
I mean, it's so hard because I don't think Juwan Howard cares about, I don't, this is going to sound probably way worse than it is meant to, but like, I don't think he really cares about recruiting this state as much as he cares as recruiting his contacts.
That's fair, but these aren't all in-state kids. I mean,
I see what you mean. I mean,
I'm just curious, do you think there will be more or less overlap moving forward? Or do you, what I mean? Like, are there going to be there's just a small number of head-to-head recruiting battles here where you think of always like the Michigan State in-state recruiting battle. Even a guy like Gary Harris or like out-of-state prospects, right? It's interesting how both schools have kind of gone after guys who aren't even really in the Big Ten footprint necessarily,
right?
But they've prioritized as a fit for some other reason. Is that just
I'll say more going forward. I think there will be more overlap in the 2021 beyond. Then I feel like this 2020 class is an interesting one because Michigan is basically going on what they can cobble together in a very short amount of time, being so late to the game. So you get the kids who have a tie to Juwan Howard via his network of people. You get a kid who is the nephew of a dude who played for Phil Martelli, right? Like, you're just kind of putting together the class that you can under the constraints that you face. But I imagine from 2021 on, there would be more of a plan formulated that would probably have more crossover with a school like Michigan State. How's that?
Yeah, that's fair. Do you think part of the reason the Big Ten struggles to recruit at an elite level is the fact that so many of these kids they have to go and recruit are from outside the region? Like, is there just less talent in the Midwest right now?
There's probably a little bit less talent. It's also cold as balls up here. It's who's
Yeah, I'm just saying
it's true.
It's weird to me how far out of the Midwest so many of these targets for both schools are. There's not a lot of Indiana kids. Like even the kids that Indiana's about to sign, like the two best kids from the state of Indiana, they're top 80 level prospects, right?
Do they still go to school in the state of Indiana?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't feel like transfers out are as big of a thing in the state of Indiana because it's like I don't know if you get like banned from the town. Yeah, right. I don't think you can leave.
Tiger withdrawals from the Northern Trust.
Well, when he's whining about his back the day before the tournament starts, I feel like you can predict
why
that.
He's playing the playoff. Why? I don't get it at all.
Well, he only had to play around so he'll probably be all right.
Stupid. All right, let's get on to 2021. So,
where the news is happening.
This is actually pretty timely because State put out 3 offers in this class this week. Kind of, I would say, making its priority list very clear. So there are 5 players currently in the 2021 class hold scholarship offers from Michigan State. It's Pierre Brooks, Jaden Akins, Kobe Buffkin, Caleb First, Max Christie. We'll get into these 5 kind of quick hitters, and then talk about 2 other targets that I think could eventually land some offers from the staff. So we'll start with, let's go up to Grand Rapids. We'll start with Kobe Buffkin. I think he just played in the Elite 100 in St. Louis and got a slew of offers.
I like that.
What's that? Yeah?
Slew? St. Louis?
Oh, shit. Nice.
I like that.
Grand Rapids Christian, same school that produced Xavier Tillman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
So, obviously, connections there. He's been on campus. He specifically mentioned Dwayne Stevens in his tweet when he announced the scholarship offer, so he obviously has a relationship there. Do you have any thoughts on him? You've seen him play at all?
I have not. I don't think I've seen him play in person. He is another scoring guard. There's really the depth of this 2021 class in the state of Michigan is probably as good as it's been in a while. Mm-hmm. There's really like a tier of 4, 5, 6 guys who are probably high major players, and he's definitely in that group. I find it interesting that they offered 3 on one day and what that kind of says. But yeah, I don't have any big thoughts on his game as much as some of the other guys, but I would say that Michigan State probably feels good about recruiting from the west side of Michigan, without a doubt.
For sure. Pierre Brooks, Detroit kid, plays at Frederick Douglass for his father. Pierre Brooks Sr. He was recently at Purdue's elite camp, actually. But 6'5" kid, scorer. He's had a bunch of mid-major offers and is now, I think, his recruitment's kind of going to the next level.
Yeah, he was also at Michigan's camp over the weekend.
Okay.
He really just stands out as a Michigan State kind of player to me. Mm-hmm. Just bigger, stronger, tougher, really overpowers guys in his grade at this point. Right. Probably like the shot is the question there and where he develops, but really productive player who has been on the radar for a long time and just seems like a guy who fits at Michigan State to me.
Yeah, played for the family. Obviously, Purdue has some ties there. Travion Williams, currently a sophomore at Purdue, also played for the family, so they know each other, so there's some ties there. So that's an interesting one. But Michigan State, I think, is probably going to be well-positioned here, and it seems like one of those, believe it when you see it that someone could beat them for a scoring guy from Detroit who they want, right?
Yeah, I would say that probably they would have to be the favorite in his recruitment right now, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how his game kind of grows from here. So he's probably a top 100 type now, but if he becomes a little more smooth, I just wonder how much of his game is that he's just tougher and can kind of overpower guys, and how that develops as the rest of his class gets stronger. So that'll be something to watch as his kind of development goes on.
Right, and he's 6'5", or listed at 6'5" at least. He could by this time next year could be 6'9" for all you know. And that could obviously change things. Jaden Akins, you want to get into him a little bit?
Yeah, I really like his game. He really played well at the NCAA Academy recently, and it was at Illinois, I believe, for the Midwest one. Those were those camps that everyone kind of ragged on across the recruiting industry. But for a guy like him, who's sort of on the fringes of the top 100, it was really kind of coming out party. He's a guy who's just an elite 3-level scorer as a guard, plays really well out of ball screens, can get to the rim, shoot the three off the dribble. Really like his game. He crushed it also at Michigan's camp over the weekend, from what I understand. And not surprised. I think he's trending upward quickly. I think Illinois offered him recently, maybe Iowa, a couple other Big Ten schools. So he's a guy on the rise.
Yeah, he kind of had a lot of mid-major offers coming in early. Pretty obviously a talent that was kind of getting ready to blow up, and I think Michigan State, and Wisconsin, Purdue, Iowa, Illinois, all those had just kind of been lurking there and waiting, and now they're all going to come probably pouring in. So interesting, versatile player. I love his wingspan. There's a lot to like there. This would be an interesting one to see if it actually gets into a little Michigan State.
Yeah, so he was at Michigan's camp over the weekend, and that was the first contact he's had with Juwan Howard. Obviously, Michigan's other coaches have been on him a bit, but it seems like Michigan's maybe not quite as far in the process of recruiting him, but definitely could be one to keep an eye on moving forward, because he played so well at their camp, and he's obviously trending toward being a guy who could potentially fit both systems. I would say of the three, he's the most likely to develop into that head-to-head recruiting battle.
Yep.
You agree with that?
Yes, I do. Another scholarship offer from 2021, Caleb First, who will have a very long list. He's already a top 40 kid nationally. 6'9", Indiana scorer. The typical characters you would expect are already been long in on him. Your Butlers, your Indianas. 2 weeks after
Purdue.
Michigan State offered, Virginia offered. So, that kind of speak. You hear that list. It kind of speaks to the player that he is. But Michigan State's right in it. I think Dane Fife is probably leading the charge in that recruitment. We'll see. I mean, he'd be a major get for sure.
Fort Wayne kid. He's a good fit for Michigan State. Kind of does his work around the basket, efficient.
Real nice guy. That for if a Joey Hauser in one day, this guy right behind him would be probably the ideal situation for State.
Yeah.
You're buying that.
But again, everyone in the Midwest is going to offer him a scholarship and probably beyond, right? So that is never going to be easy recruiting out of Fort Wayne, where you've got the Indiana poll, Purdue poll.
Yeah.
Basically any direction.
Yeah. Similarly, Max Christie.
This is another level. He's probably my favorite 2021 prospect out there. He's a stud.
Really? I think Duke thinks the same thing.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Right.
This kid has been a stud, 5-star, super efficient, scores, shoots, just does it all, really smooth. The talk was always that a Duke offer would change things, and Duke offered at the end of July, and that's pretty much where everyone assumes he'll go. But man, he's really good, really efficient. Love his game.
Yeah.
I guess this could be a Michigan State battle for second, maybe.
Right.
Because it'd be hard to beat Duke, I would say.
Yeah, and you have to imagine Illinois is throwing the kitchen sink at him too. But he's kind of a Gary Harris type. Has all the skill in the world. I mean, it would be one that it would obviously be like why Michigan State is getting into it with a kid from Illinois, what Duke is involved in, again, is beyond me. But kudos for trying,
Yeah, kid is special. I mean, I just don't see how you're gonna beat out Duke. But hey, got to happen sometime, right?
This is true.
Maybe
that's what they said going into last year's Elite Eight game, right?
Yeah.
So you never know. But so I think it's safe to say, I imagine Michigan State getting at least one of the in-state kids out of that group that we just said that already have offers. And maybe you can snag one of the other guys. But two other names to keep an eye on. Luke Goody, Goode, another Fort Wayne kid who's been watched by Big Ten schools for a good while now and is now starting to get the offers. True shooting guard. I think he's just a big-time shooter. Is seen that way. Listed here at 6'5". Who knows if that's actually accurate. But they're really high on him. Another name, I'm going to butcher this last name and apologize in advance. But J.R. Koninsky. How are we feeling about that? But
good enough.
Right.
Sorry to his family if they're listening to the end of this Michigan State recruiting podcast.
He's at St. Joseph South Bend, small forward, 6'6". They like him. And again, it's going to be that list of your Butlers, your Iowas, your Indianas, and Michigan State is taking a long look. And imagine him getting on campus at some point if he hasn't already, and maybe joining that other list. I think Goody and Konitsky end up both in that other list of guys holding offers from 2021. Any thoughts on either of these two?
I do not have any. I didn't get that far in my research. My apologies. I think the timing we can talk about maybe a little bit for Michigan State, offering these three in-state kids when they did. I feel like it's kind of in line with sort of the evaluation cycle, but it is notable, I would say, that they offered them all before Michigan.
Totally. And I think that's not a coincidence.
No, and it'll be interesting to see, I guess, how that plays out, who Michigan offers, how that's reacted, or how that's what's the reaction to that in moving forward with the 2021 class.
Right. And I think it will be interpreted differently than it would be in years past, because so often it was the beeline process of, all these boxes you had to check before you get a scholarship offer, and Michigan State would end up, these guys start visiting when they're in 7th grade or whatever, and they know all these people, and so they start, they're early on their offers because they've done their homework for years in advance, and, Michigan kind of just did things a different way. So when it came to in-state kids, Michigan State was always first to offer, it seemed like, at least 95% of the time. And maybe that was interpreted a little bit as not a slight, but, okay, one came before the other, right? I think for this class, Michigan will at least be able to lean on Juwan Howard saying, hey, man, I've been trying to get caught up and I've been wanting to see you and blah, blah, blah. Like you can just kind of play it off a little bit differently than Beeline, who was in his 11th year, being like, sorry, I waited this long to offer you.
The difference, though, is that Juwan Howard's handed out almost close to double-digit 2021 offers. They're just two players who are out of the state, more like the 5-star national approach, whereas Michigan State can turn around and say, we're prioritizing the state. We're evaluating you. You're the guys we want, because they have 5 offers out and they're all from a few hundred miles from campus, right?
Right. That's a very good point.
That's at least, I would say, the point that stands out when you look at the 2 recruiting boards right now. And
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, that's how Michigan State kind of builds their classes, where you start close to home, like you add Jalen Terry, and then you go and you expand your board as you look, because you don't have to offer a kid from Oklahoma early per se. So I guess that kind of just plays into how you kind of build the foundation of the class with the in-state kids. And really, that's the foundation of Michigan State's program, right?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, just got an email. Yeah. So
One guy.
Who you got?
I was going to say, we didn't talk at all about Scooby Johnson in the 2020 class.
Okay.
Any thoughts on where his recruitment's at? He's a Michigan and a Michigan State offer and hasn't really gone anywhere. I don't know. It's been speculation that maybe he's headed out of state or something like that, but he's always been a guy that some people kind of just pencil into Michigan State at one point or another. I'm just curious if there's any Michigan State scuttlebutt on his recruitment.
Is there internally? Probably. Has anything been translated to me? No.
Fair enough. I was just wondering if you have heard anything on his recruitment. That's all I'm asking, man. You don't have to get defensive.
No. I'm trying to. I might have a note here, actually. I think that things have cooled there.
Yeah, it seems like they've kind of cooled
Mutually.
in-state. Like, I feel like he might be like looking at like Butler or something like that at this point.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a moot point when it comes to that 2020 group for at least for Michigan State. Is all I can speak to on this.
Fair enough. Any other recruiting thoughts? Anything we got left in the notebook over there?
The notebook's pretty fleshed out here. Yeah. Do we want to mention Amani Bates?
We can talk about Amani Bates.
Obviously, 2022, who could reclassify to 2021. I still don't think that there's a chance in hell that he plays a minute of college basketball.
It sounds like most of the talk about reclassifying would be to work out a year earlier in terms of just training for the NBA draft and not necessarily playing college basketball.
Yeah.
But Michigan State and Michigan are really the only 2 schools recruiting him at this point. Which is
one of those
notable.
You have to. Because you never know.
No one else is.
I know.
Which is notable.
It is notable because everyone doesn't think there's a chance in hell that he plays college basketball. But it's one of those, if you have a guy who's that good right here, you got to at least keep it in play that something crazy happens. Because how big of an asshole do you look like if he decides one day or his family decides for shits and gigs, you got to go to college for a year or something, or some rule doesn't pass or whatever. There's different legislation. And holy hell, he has to go play college hoops for a year, and one's been recruiting him and the other one hasn't. And he goes there. It would be pretty bad.
To be fair, that is
what he
exactly
should do.
What would have happened if there wasn't a coaching change at Michigan.
There you go. That's a good point.
You
know what he should do?
What's that?
1 year at EMU. That'd be the shit. Just go crush the MAC.
That would be, I guess, something.
I'm here for it. That'd
You're
be awesome.
here for it.
So, yeah. He's been on campus, though. I've seen him at multiple games and passed him in the hall. Just has a group of around 15 people around him at all times, and
probably like a film crew.
Yeah, it's a scene, man. It is a scene. But I imagine he'll be off to the NBA making many, many millions of dollars very shortly here. So probably a moot point. But
I would say if you have a film crew following you around all summer, you probably plan on cashing in on your image or likeness. Just a hunch. Just a hunch.
Fair. Okay. You got anything else?
I think that's a wrap.
All right, very good. Well, we hope you enjoyed both of our recruiting episodes here. I feel like it's probably just a good thing to touch on here and there. This is obviously not a recruiting pod, but we can talk about it every once in a while.
We can talk about it once every 45 episodes.
Yeah, right.
It works.
Right. And actually, now under the format change, I imagine when either lands a recruit, we can at least hop on and talk about them for 20 minutes.
Do a little quick deep dive.
Right. All right. Well, that'll do it. If you like this podcast, if you want to support this podcast, please subscribe to Dylan's site, umhoops.com, and also The Athletic for you Michigan State fans out there.
You just dropped a 5,000 word story and didn't even tease it at the top of the podcast.
Forgot to tease it. Maybe we can edit this in or something. But just dropped a 5,000 word season preview for 2019. I talked to Tom Izzo for 2.5 hours for it. Talked to Cassius Winston earlier in the summer. And I think in terms of getting you ready for next year, I hope it serves everything you could possibly need.
To be clear, that's a 5,000 word preview in August of the basketball team, not the football team, which is about to start its season.
Listen, man, as my tweet said,
I respect it.
You pay for what you get, and when you subscribe to The Athletic, you get 5,000 words on your basketball team in August. Boom.
Pay for what you get? It seems like you messed up that pitch there.
What?
You pay for what you want or what you get?
You get what you pay for. That's what I said.
You get what you pay for.
There you go.
Even if you don't know you paid for it. You didn't know you needed a 5,000 word Michigan State preview, but
then you
I
get
bet
it.
people. I'll read it.
I think, in my very humble opinion, there's a shit ton of information in there. There's actually some newsworthy stuff on Tom Izzo and talking about Joshua Langford and his progression back into the lineup. I was actually thinking, Dylan, we might pod next week. And get into that conversation that I had with Izzo and talk about some potential stuff off of that preview. You up for that?
I'm always ready to podcast about Joshua Langford, as long as we can talk about shot selection.
This is well, I will tell you as a teaser, when I mentioned what we talked about in a previous podcast about Michigan State, Tom Izzo agreed with the moving screen pod.
There you go.
How about that?
So go read your story, subscribe, and we'll be back maybe next week.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I think so.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tip your bartenders and your servers.